Following the 1959 Cuban Revolution, the petty bourgeois Castro government expropriated the holdings of the U.S. imperialists and their domestic bourgeois lackeys. The nationalization of the means of production and the creation of critical Soviet military and economic aid to provide everyone a job, decent housing, food, and education. Despite these achievements, which have been eroded since the destruction of the Soviet Union, the Cuban workers' state has been bureaucratically deformed from its inception, with the working class excluded from political power. Cuba is run by a Stalinist bureaucratic caste that upholds the nationalist dogma of socialism in one country, which means renouncing the struggle for international socialist revolution and undermining the defense of the Cuban Revolution. We call for the unconditional military defense of the Cuban deformed workers' state, as well as the other remaining workers' states of China, North Korea, and Vietnam, against imperialism and capitalist counter-revolution, while opposing the barbaric institution of capital punishment and the Stalinist bureaucracy's use of it. We support Cuba's military defense against the imperialists and all measures that are genuinely in defense of the Cuban Revolution, including the imprisonment of those, quote, dissidents, end quote, who are actively collaborating with U.S. imperialism. At the same time, we also noted in 2003, quote, as Trotskyists, we know full well that the Castro regime metes out repression to those of its opponents, including socialist militants, who are not counter-revolutionaries. Workers' democracy is completely alien to Stalinism, as it is to the crew of rad libs and others who peddle the case of the pro-imperialist dissidents in the name of bourgeois democracy. But it is critical for us Marxists who fight to defend and extend the gains of the Cuban Revolution by replacing the nationalist rule of the Stalinist bureaucracy that seeks to appease the imperialists with the rule of workers' Soviets based on a program of proletarian revolutionary internationalism. End quote. Defend the Cuban Revolution. Workers' Vanguard number 805, 6 June 2003. Our fight for proletarian political revolution to oust the Stalinist bureaucracy and institute a regime of workers' democracy is premised on defense of the proletarian property forms in the deformed workers' states. Chomsky postures as a defender of Cuba against U.S. imperialism, opposing U.S. sanctions and the imprisonment of the Cuban Five. But, far from defending the collectivized economy of Cuba against the imperialist drive towards the restoration of capitalism, Chomsky can't even bring himself to mention its existence in his latest book, theorizing that U.S. hostility towards Cuba stems from the fear and impending of independent nationalism. Thus, Chomsky's statement that he'd like to see the Castro regime overthrown by an internal libertarian revolution, and not that one alone, Chomsky on Cuba, 27 August 1994, posted on Z Magazine's website, can only be a call for, quote, democratic capitalist counter-revolution. Not surprisingly, Chomsky's models of democracy are capitalist Bolivia, capitalist Venezuela, and imperialist America. Chomsky deflected our question at the June forum by telling us to go listen to his interview on Radio Havana for answers. In this 28 August 2003 interview, Chomsky announces to the Cuban workers' state that, quote, the United States, to its credit, is a very free country, maybe the freest country in the world in many respects. Radio Havana interviews Chomsky, 4 September 2003, posted on Z Magazine website. One wonders if the news reached the ears of the bound and hooded prisoners at Guantanamo Bay. For a Leninist, Trotskyist, revolutionary vanguard. For Chomsky, the blood-drenched Democratic Party is far less objectionable than Bolshevism. The Bolshevik-led workers' revolution, which Chomsky spits on, liberated 1/6 of the planet from the clutches of the capitalist exploitation. The destruction of the Soviet Union has been a worldwide historic defeat for working people internationally. We Trotskyists fought for the unconditional military defense of the degenerated Soviet workers' state against imperialism and and capitalist counter-revolution, and for the political revolution to oust the Stalinist bureaucracy. We fight to build a workers' party that will make a socialist revolution in the belly of the U.S. imperialist beast. In the final instance, this is Cuba and other workers' states' best defense. From our labor black mobilizations to stop the Klan, to our fight against the forces of capitalist counter-revolution, to our intervention in the former East Germany and Soviet Union, to our fight to free Mumia Abu-Jamal today, we have earned our reputation and proudly carry on the tradition of Lenin and Trotsky. Meanwhile, Chomsky continues to babble about how the, quote, democratic credentials of the bloodiest empire on the planet have lost their luster. As we stated about Chomsky at the June 6th forum, quote, you perpetuate that you can have a humane imperialist system which actually disarms not only the working class but leftists, end quote. In Chomsky's Imperialism, Armchair Anarchists, we wrote, just as it took Lenin and Trotsky's Bolshevik Party, a vanguard party leading the working class, to create the first revolutionary workers' state in history out of the ruins of the autocratic Russian Empire, so today it will take a revolutionary internationalist vanguard party to lead the fight for successful workers' revolution against the rotting American imperialism. That is the fight to which the Spartacus League, American section of the International Communist League, the Fourth Internationalists, and Spartacus Youth Club are dedicated. Those who set their sights higher than a comfortable academic career as an ideologist for the imperialist war machine should join us in our fight for a communist future for humanity.